All right, it's another episode of Stand Up.
That really was a first. Your vanity has finally sailed into the moon. Like we've done 3 seasons of this, and all of a sudden today we've learned that blue is your color.
It is my color.
Who told you that? Stevie Wonder probably. And also, you're asking our panel here, our engineers, our techies, do your arms look funny?
No, they're
your arms.
No, I mean,
if you
like
sit
this.
weird,
you can't sit like this. It looks weird. I gotta. Okay, but the point is,
if you're not saying, do my arms look funny? You're saying, sorry. Do I look uncomfortable? You always look on stage. You look uncomfortable.
I feel very comfortable. It's stand-up memory.
I think you probably should talk to our guest since he's waiting an hour.
But I want to introduce Jackie the Joke Man Martling here, Peter Bales, and boy, do we have a great guest who's being very patient, by the way.
He has no choice.
A longtime comedy manager and agent for the agency, very well known, Omnipop.
Former rock and roll star.
Former rock and roll star.
Don't leave that out.
Who I met when I was in high school when we hired his band to play for a high school dance.
Now, see, that's why we shut up before the show, because that might have come up. Now I'm registering actual shock because I did not know that.
The name of the band was Backyard Closet, and he was a singer. And I
thought it was Wizard or Wild Band.
Tom Ingegno, take it away. And we'll start at the beginning. You were a musician in a band called Backyard Closet, but other bands as well. Okay, now, how long can we keep him waiting before he talks?
In high school, I was in a band called the Backyard Closet.
That's right.
Right? That was Locust Valley High School. I was the singer in the band. And I've always wanted to pursue something in the music field, or I knew that I was going to be an agent or a manager in some capacity. So the first thing I did is after college is I became a music manager for bands, local bands, in Pittsburgh. So I stayed out there for 5 years.
Now you didn't end your band just because you were sick of answering the question, what does Backyard Closet mean?
Yeah, I know. I know only Jackie could go there.
Well, obviously, I know where you got the name Backyard Closet.
You do?
Yes. Drugs.
But nobody would have ever thought of anything about that back then. I didn't name the band. But years later, then after that, I was managing mostly bands until I managed an original band, which I got to co-write for and produce. And we got a record deal. And, we got shelved on the 3rd album, not unlike anybody else's story. Sometimes we didn't get lucky.
Tell everybody the name of that band. You haven't said it.
The name of that band was Thrills. Very big band on Long Island, 77 to 81, 1977 to 81. And, and it was good times. And then I switched over after the band broke up and I stopped writing songs. I switched over to handling comedians.
And comedians are so much easier than a band because all we need is a microphone and a stool, and they come in with 6 guys
and somebody to listen to us complain.
Right, somebody to put up with us. But you found working with comedians to be rewarding. Is that fair?
Yeah, I seem to like it because I don't know how other people are, but whether we started as an agency, so we were agents, and then we became managers. But people always thought as agents we were managers because we were one of the few people that cared about the acts. In other words, people would go like, well, you guys are their agents. What are you doing here? Oh, well, we came to see our act. It's like whether it was a taping or a club date or a college date or something, we actually showed up quite often.
Yeah, there's comics that don't see their managers or their agents for like a year at a time, or
Exactly.
But I got one more question before that. Did your band break up and you decided rather than start over and start with a whole nother band that you were going to become a manager, or did you end the band to become a manager?
No, the band broke up, and it was kind of like the band, since I wasn't a performing member of the band, but I got to write a lot of songs for the band. When I lost the vehicle, it kind of like put me in distress, it put me in a depression. The band was my vehicle for like 6 years.
Well,
I go down, pound out a couple of songs, and then we go,
Yeah, but there's nothing worse than, the old band business, you're depending on five, I had a world war with my band at the very end of our existence and when I was in my college band, a couple of years after college, like 5 guys, and I actually punched the child prodigy organ player. We're in the parking lot, and I was so frustrated because he was such a jerk. I actually punched him in the chest, and I've never punched anybody. And after I punched him, I just said out of frustration, why can't I get in a band with normal musicians? And I swear to God, the light bulb went bing. There's no such thing as a normal musician. So you're dealing not just with 5 personalities, you're dealing with 5 eccentric nuts in general, including you and me and him,
Well, yeah, because not unlike a comic, however, a comic can't really break up with himself.
Right.
So
that's
a band can break up for various reasons. Yeah, the comic is like all you got is yourself. But what are you going to do? Yell at yourself here and there, like, "Hey, no, I'm not going to do that. No, I'm not going to say that. Or I'm not going to say that."
There have been times in my life when I've broken up with myself, and it's just what it means is I just want to cut down on what I'm doing.
So you wanted to secede from Bales?
I did. I did. Now, Tom, do you know this? Jackie was.
But you must have jumped right back into your skin because it's the same act.
Listen, my Jimmy Carter jokes still work. Now, Jackie was in a band with 3 guys, and then you tell the story, but it's so funny. The way
He knows the story. We're a 3-man act, and we're in the beer closet at the end of the night, and my pal Bates, who I went to kindergarten with, goes, "There's 3 of us," and he goes, "Jackie, me and Herbie are going to leave the band and start our own band." I said, "You moron. But if there's 3 guys in the band and 2 of them leave to start a band, that's kicking me out of the band. Like, say it like it is. We're leaving the band,
I don't think they wanted to tell you. They didn't want to break it to you.
And the truth of it, I was such a loud mouth, and I wrote the songs and told the jokes, so who cares?
Well, they always say that you're only as good as your weakest link. But the problem is sometimes the weakest link is the glue. And, or part of the glue or part of the personality. And when you dump that particular person, the rest of the band is in a whole piece again. So I know that that's kind of true because there's always going to be a better musician, but sometimes the personalities, you can trace a lot of the rock bands today that are famous and they broke up or one guy left and the next thing you know, the next album sucked and then the guy's back in the band again. So,
I distinctly remember our guitar player because my band, I graduated, but I stayed in the college town, and the organ player and the bass player and the guitar player and the drummer, they were all fantastic. And I sucked. And I remember so distinctly, I said to this very dry guitar player who was just the greatest character, I said, this is hard for me because I'm the worst guy in the band. And he said, "In some ways, you're the worst. In some ways, you're the best." I said, "I'll accept that," because you got to have a loudmouth in the band. You got to have it. Rock and roll band,
So listen, speaking for everybody out there watching who is tone deaf, like I am, let's talk about comedians. You know a lot about comedians, Tom. You've worked with so many of them. Are they more crazy than people in bands or less crazy?
That's
a person-to-person basis, right?
Yeah, I think that really depends on the person. I have a story where I put up in one of the bands that I was managing at the time, and I put somebody up against the wall because they told me something, and I never knew I had that inner strength to be able to do that. And once I did that, I said, I can't do this anymore. and I can't handle 6 people. I could still handle 6 people, 7 people, but I said, why am I doing that? Just like Jackie said, a light bulb goes up, and you go like, why am I doing that when I love comedy, I love comedians. Most of the comedians that I worked with over the years became some of my best friends. I mean, I've been friends with some of the comics, and we keep saying it's 20 years, and then we add up the years and it's 30 years, but it's actually 40 years. That's some of the guys that I've been really, really good friends with and close with. And I probably have watched them grow, and, can honestly say that they're some of the finest human beings on the planet. Based on knowing how they handle themselves with their family, with their friends, with their wives, their spouses, and things like that.
So they're not just your friends. You're actually glad they're your friends.
Yes, I'm glad, and they're people that I would trust explicitly. And, in the beginning, I think that what people don't seem to realize that it's very, very difficult to be somebody's first manager or somebody's first agent.
I have to ask this, Tom. If I ask Jackie right now the difference between a manager and an agent, I'm not sure you could answer. Could you answer that? The difference? A lot of comedians watch this show.
An agent gets 10% of what he books. A manager can charge any percentage, and a manager can still, I think, book gigs if he wants to, right?
Well, if they're filtered through the manager, he can take the offers. Okay, I mean, there's a gray line there, but it's if you can't get an agent for your band, I'm back to bands. If you can't get an agent for your act, you end up having to do it all. And if you're not doing it all, then they're not working. They're not going anywhere. And it comes down to the fact of the breakdowns and things like that. So the goal of a manager is to get an agent. But the agents today don't build anybody. They don't build somebody from the bottom up and say, get me that person on that stage there. I'm going to take them to the top. Nah. They'll look at an influencer on TikTok or Instagram or something like that and say, whoa, let me try to make something out of this. They have 2 million followers. Okay. Gotcha. It doesn't matter whether that particular person.
Yeah. And then we have to listen to the club owner bitch that.
Yeah,
he booked somebody from TikTok that had like a TikTok worth of material,
Exactly. But they filled the room, and they put 300 people in the seats, and he made the money off of the booze and the foods, and he'll complain all he wants, but he'll do it again the next weekend. Okay?
Absolutely.
There is you got to keep the doors open. And so in a managerial standpoint, I think it becomes a kind of thing where you're a manager and you can pick the people you want to work with. When you're an agency, there's a whole bunch of people that they tell you to book. Okay. And you got to, this one needs work this week. We got to do that for his manager, or he's a good guy. When you're a manager, you could say, you know what? I only want to manage people that I like, that I think are funny, and they're good human beings. And, that's the kind of thing in the choice that a manager can make. And,
say it. It's a classier job. Manager is a much classier job than agent.
A manager handles really every aspect of the comedian's career. Managers can even say, don't forget your mother's birthday this Thursday, right?
Yes.
Involved.
It's not my mother's dead, man.
Yeah, the guy said, a manager can remind you and say, well, what is the joke now? The difference between an agent and a manager is, let me try to get this correct, is that your manager tells you what tie to wear, and then your agent says your manager has bad taste in ties.
Okay.
Okay, because they don't like each other. Even though they work together, they don't like to, because it's always the kind of thing, well, I got him this and I got him that. And that's why the teams today, that's why they can't gel and they can't work together, because it becomes a combative and a competitive type of thing. And people's feelings get hurt. Oh, I brought him that audition and he got the part. And I go, yeah, but I've coordinated the whole thing, and it's just, I think deep down, it ends up being the act who decides whether the right person is handling their career or not. Because based on everything, a manager can charge, yes, Jackie's right. They can charge whatever the hell they want. I only charge 10%. Okay.
Gotcha.
So the worst that's going to happen to anybody is 10% to an agent, 10% to a manager, where there's people that are charging 20% to book somebody. So, with
I hear
me,
you. Let me ask you, Tom, let me ask you.
You know the classic story of the kid says, "Mommy, there's 3 guys walking down the sidewalk." She goes, "Yeah." He says, "Yeah, one of them is a comedian." And she says, "Quick, hide your sister." Yeah, and another one's an actor. Quick, hide your brother. And the third one's an agent. Hide the dog. See, you can make the third person anybody you want, I didn't make it a manager because I respect you.
Well, thank you. But there's a need, I would say, for both. But as a manager, you want to find the right agent for your act, because you got to remember too, on every agent's list, there's a bottom 10, there's a bottom 20, and they're not getting any work. So you look at the upper echelon and say, well, these people handle this, this, and this, but you forgot that there's probably 60 people under that nothing's going on in their career.
Tom, I'm going to start a joke.
And that's something you've got to make sure that.
Gotcha.
You can't make Tom listen to a joke.
I got it.
Okay.
Jackie's going to know it right away. A doctor, a lawyer, and a comedian die and go to the gates of heaven and meet St. Peter. And St. Peter says to the doctor, well, what did you do good in life to get into heaven? And the doctor says, oh, I saved people's lives. They were sick, they were suffering, and I helped them. St. Peter says, okay, you can come into heaven. And then St. Peter says to the lawyer, well, what did you do that was good in your life to get into heaven? And the lawyer said, I fought for people who were unjustly accused of crimes, and I did the right thing, and I kept them out of jail and free. Okay, St. Peter says, you can go into heaven. And St. Peter turns to the comedian and says, well, what did you do good in life to get into heaven? And the comedian says, I traveled the country and the world making people laugh and sacrificing my own family life and going on stage every night and lifting people's moods when they were really, really hurting. And St. Peter looks at the comedian and says, send me a tape.
I didn't know yet.
Isn't that a great joke?
Because the other version of that, the third one is a musician. He says, I was a musician. He says, all right, well, go around the back and come in through the kitchen. They're all classic.
Tom, I got a question for you.
Yes.
Can you think of a time when you were a manager dealing with acts and you question, I can't do this anymore? Any horror moments? Any times when you question what you had chosen to do with your life?
Like every Monday morning.
I gotta tell you, even at my age, at this particular point, I still really love what I do. And it's really hard. It's just, sometimes you put yourself in people's situations and say, what is the best job in the world to have? And sometimes I go, I think maybe a mailman. All he has to do is worry about delivering the mail, getting through the weather, a dog here and there. He gets his pension and he's done for the day. And on the weekends, he's off, he's not off. But then again, everybody's job has some sort of difficulty, no matter who you are. Everybody wakes up some days and go, oh, why am I doing this? I can't do this. This is horrible, and I wake up sometimes and I go, like, I don't want to let anybody down. And you seem to keep going and going and say, am I doing the most I can do for this person and the best I can?
What do you do?
But I've never wanted to quit.
Tom,
I've never wanted to quit.
What do you say? And I know this has happened to you because it's part of the job. When a club owner calls you and says, I can't believe you sent me that act. He was terrible. He bombed.
And Tom says, I won't send Jackie again.
What do you do in that? I know, don't tell me that hasn't happened. What do you say?
That hasn't happened since the time when we theoretically were allowed to just insert people into jobs. Okay. Nowadays, everybody decides when and how they're going to do their homework. And like you said, like the joke, send me a tape. Well, it's send me a link, send me their clip. And then a lot of times today, the club owner makes the choice on his own. Okay. But see, there's no rooms that are flourishing so much where they can do like the old days. In the old days, when we say this, it's kind of weird to say the old days, but all you had to do was put 3 good comedians on stage, and you built a reputation is that every single week there's going to be 3 great comedians on that stage.
Right.
Okay. And nowadays, from a budget standpoint, we know how it goes. Well, the first guy was okay. The middle guy was a little bit better, but thank God for the last guy, and boy, I hate to, this is like something, but we don't, the new people today don't have a place to start. So they have to start. And those are, the budgetary constraints. The club, if we put all the clubs out of business because they're supposed to keep paying all this money, then there won't be any clubs for anybody to work. So the truth of the matter is you have to book a club in survival mode. I think
everything's just got to find its own level. It's just that simple.
Jackie and I well remember when the club had a reputation and the audience did not check who was playing that night. They knew they were going on Long Island to the East Side or to Chuckles or to Governor's, and they knew there was going to be a quality show. And in Manhattan, it would have been Catch a Rising Star, the comic strip, or the improv.
Yeah, there might be somebody they like more than the other guy, but there weren't going to be any, the bad ones didn't get on,
No. And that was like, in the early days of comedy, though, nobody really knew what the barometer was or what the level was. So when you did go to, places on Long Island, top of the town, and they'd have a marathon of comics coming through there, everybody was good. You didn't specifically have to, I like this guy more than I like that guy. That guy was pretty good. But we were all just learning comedy at that time. We didn't know what level of funny was. You go back and look at some of the Seinfeld episodes and look at some of the people that were on the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, and you look at it and you just stare there. You just stare and go, well, you know what? In 1979, that was probably funny.
Right. Well, you have to judge comedy in the context of its times. 100% agree. But I still go back, and I know you do too, and laugh. Jack Benny is my favorite.
Well, those are the classics. Exactly. You're going to go back to Jackie Vernon, Jack Benny.
They did 30 years before you saw them.
They worked in vaudeville.
Yes, they were still, and they're still funny to this day. But there's the comics, when the new level of comics came, not like those guys, Jack Benny and those people that you just mentioned. Everything was an evergreen, which is why they ask you when you do a show now to try to make sure that it's not a specific time frame when you're talking about certain things. This way it doesn't date itself. And I think that's, something that did happen on the TV shows back in the days.
I keep telling Bales to take the whole Kennedy assassination piece out of his act.
I think it still works.
He needs the time, he's got to get 27 minutes,
Oh man, Tom, listen, we got.
That's the Teddy Kennedy thing. That's the thing.
I think we hardly even got started here, and we're done.
We haven't really scratched the surface, so we definitely want to have you back. But it has been so much fun. People need to understand how comedy works, and comedians work with agents and managers, and it's important to get the right ones for the sake of your career. It's as simple as that. And and seriously for a second, you have a tough job, and we acknowledge that.
And one thing people that are watching this might not know, you have a stellar reputation as being one of the good guys in a really crap business, and the world should know that.
Well,
as much as I like to break your balls.
Yeah,
I know, but I love that's all of the, what, that reputation, the honesty and the integrity is all that really matters to me. and plus I care about the people that I work with, and that's important.
And let's be honest, the audience needs to know that the charges were dropped regarding the 16-year-old Vietnamese boy. They found in your-
Don't be, look, he's tied up behind the couch.
But
All right, well, Tom, I'm just telling you, we want to mention Omnipop is your agency, and you work with great people.
yes,
Including your partner, Barbara, who we also love. And
I want to tell you how interesting you are. We got through an entire episode without Bales mentioning his stupid comedy college. So that's what's great. All right, we'll have you again, and hopefully in person.
StandUpUniversity.com. Jackie reminded me, and something else happened on this show. The first time ever, Jackie let me finish a joke. And I thank you for that.
I was hoping it wouldn't be as funny as it was.
Tom Ingegno, Omnipop, manager and agent extraordinaire. Thank you so much for coming on our podcast.
hey, thanks for having me.
Love to
Thank
the
you.
wife, the gang, the family, the dogs,
Best to you
the
guys.
redheads. Bye, Tom. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
See you guys later. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
That was a pretty good episode.
A new episode every Wednesday with me, Peter Bales, Jackie the Joke Man Martling, comedians, interesting people. Leave a comment. We'll get what am I saying?
I don't know.
We're gonna get back to you. We will respond to your comment.
StandUpMemories.com. If you go there, it shows all the different
Oh,
platforms.
Spotify, we're on everything.
Every Wednesday.
Stand Up Memories,
Every Wednesday.
a new episode.